Real Chat, episode 13, Buried.
I'm buried in a coffin in the ground. You have to help me. You have to help me. I can't breathe.
How did you end up in the coffin, sir?
My convoy was ambushed. I got hit in the head. I blacked out, and that's the last thing I remember. I'm being held for ransom. I need $5 million, or I'll be left to die here.
Okay, Mr. Conroy.
Wait, hold on. Wait. I need to know my name. What's going on right now?
Where is money?
I need more time. I'm begging you. Let me out of here, and I promise you I will get you the money. No.
Your fate is never sealed. Everybody, welcome to episode 13 of Real Chat, a podcast that promises week in, week out, the real world as we know it. Today we're looking at 2010's Buried, an independent production that really deserves the Real Chat treatment. Who would have guessed that the wisecracking Canadian dude from Two Guys, a Girl and a Pizza Place and Mr. Van Wilder party liaison himself would tackle such a role? But it is this man, Ryan Reynolds, who plays the everyman so convincingly that it's much easier to relate to than one might expect. So, as he comes face to face with panic, despair, frustration and desperation, we can put ourselves in his shoes and feel every one of his heartfelt and gripping emotions. Plus, even though he leaves his goofball shtick far behind, and his dire situation is certainly no laughing matter, Reynolds finds a way to make us chuckle a few times while still offering what feels like a normal reaction from his character. So, my name's Adam Stolfo, and I'm joined here today by Brose Avard. Brose, are you claustrophobic?
No, I'm fine. My undies are a bit tight. Is that the same thing?
Just about.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mr. Andrew McCaskill, claustrophobic, my friend?
Look, in a sticky situation, certainly. But in general, no, I'm pretty good in coffins.
You talking about my underwear again?
Everyone just switched off.
And Mr. Stuart Wilson over here to my right. Stuart, are you claustrophobic?
No, but this film does make me feel claustrophobic more than once.
So it's already doing something right.
It is.
There we go. Okay, so I just want to make just a quick note to our listeners out there before we get into Buried. Our podcast is a spoilers podcast, and we talk about the movie in great detail, including its ending. And the ending of Buried is quite integral. And so if you haven't seen it, I'm going to recommend that you push stop on our podcast right now, go watch the film, and then come back to us, because your enjoyment of the film could be severely hampered if you haven't seen it. So
Let's reiterate, come back to us. Come back.
Come back
to us. Please come back, week after week.
Yeah. Come back. Don't press stop and then go and watch other... Just watch it and come back.
That's right. Okay. So this is the 11th episode of our Vintage Vault retrospective series, a conscious effort to tie in selected shows with something of relevance to the present. Again, 5-year anniversary, maybe. There's no real reason. But really,
maybe we should just drop that from our mission statement. We're not tying in shit with nothing. We're just talking about films, damn it, because we like films.
That's the nuts and bolts of it all. Just a chance to look at something different. Maybe something less commercial. One that definitely captured my imagination as an independent filmmaker when I originally saw it 5 years ago. There also seems to be quite an almost universally built-in genetic code which makes virtually all of us afraid of being buried alive, and Buried really does play upon that subliminal disposition quite brilliantly. What are some of your initial thoughts on the film, guys?
If I could
Stu,
speak
put his hand
first.
up first.
Wow, Stu first. That's a first.
It is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stu.
I love confined space thrillers, so I know Rear Window is quite popular around this table.
Absolutely.
But Panic Room, a number of other films, Rope, Lock, which got mentioned a couple of weeks ago.
Moon.
Moon, exactly. I love the simplicity of them. I love the fact that they start off and they very quickly establish what the rules are, and then one by one the script just goes through all the permutations of what we could possibly do in this situation. And I really like that about the film. Yeah, and it's the most ambitious of confined space thrillers. It's got to be. Is there any more confined than this?
It's the minimum amount of space you can confine someone in without them.
Yeah, it may be an absurdly oversized coffin, but we'll just ignore that.
It might be slightly elastic, the size of that coffin. But yeah, it's tasty. I see this kind of film as it's a real intellectual pursuit. It's a writing exercise, and then it's a directorial exercise, which is not a bad thing. I remember when I was doing writing classes and so forth, one of the teachers I had he'd limit you. He goes, "It's okay, you got to write a monologue, but it needs to have X, Y, or Z in it." And then you get forced to write something not dissimilar to this, where you're trying to maintain an entire story with only one voice, whereas obviously they use a couple of different voices as well, but no other actors. It's an exercise, and when it's done well, it's really fulfilling and it feels really nice. I generally can't help but think when I watch these types of films that it is it is just an intellectual pursuit and that it is an exercise. But I really enjoyed this.
Did you forget that it seemed like an intellectual
episode? No, every time something else happened, I'm like, oh, that's a nice device. Oh, that's nice to go in that direction.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice to spin that. And seriously, if you're a writer, if you're interested in writing, especially obviously fiction, do it. Sit down. Give yourself 5 pages to write something like this. Choose a scenario and just write it. Because it can be a lot of fun.
Would have been a very boring film if it didn't have a mobile phone in the coffin with him, wouldn't it?
Would have been trouble.
What are your initial thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, look, I don't really like the confined space kind of film. I'm not drawn to them so much, but was glad to have seen it because I've heard it was a good film, and it certainly is. Very well done. Just an incredibly ambitious idea to center a whole film around a guy in a coffin and never come out of that coffin. Thought it was a very, very ballsy effort. So yeah, and it gave me another appreciation for Ryan Reynolds as an actor as well, because I've liked him as a comic actor, but he certainly has complexity in his drama roles.
He's intense in this movie, there's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah, as you would be.
The thing about Ryan Reynolds is that he's been in so many awful films, but in pretty much all of those films I have actually liked his performance. So I've always thought he's really good.
He's incredibly charismatic.
He's the only good thing
charming
about Blade Trinity. That was an awful, awful film, but his scenes were amazing.
He broke that kind of seriousness about it, didn't he?
And apparently they were constantly changing the script in Blade Trinity because Wesley Snipes was being difficult.
No.
Yeah, and
because
Ryan Reynolds...
he is Blade.
Yeah, he is Blade. He was in his trailer most of the time. But yeah, I've always liked him, and it's interesting, a lot of people can't stand him. The smugness just, really grates. And of course, anyone who suggests he's a bad actor, immediately the response is go out and watch Buried.
Yeah.
I've seen that time and again. But there you go.
Yeah, this film screams independent film, and that's what I really, really admire about it.
How many different film financing groups are mentioned at the start, too? There's about 6 of them.
Versus Entertainment, the Saffron Company, Dark Trick Films, and a Studio 37 release. And
then there are some government agencies that funded as well.
Still not quite as many as your average Australian film, but...
That's what I was feeling when I'm watching it. I was like, wow, is this made in Australia? How did they get all the money together?
The film was originally screened at the Sundance Film Festival on the 23rd of January 2010, and then it got its limited release in the US much later in the year, the 24th of September. So it was a limited release originally, and then it came out the 7th of October 2010 in Australia. Mm-hmm. So limited release, when they actually make mention of that, I'm assuming that pretty much means that the number of prints or digital versions that were sent around to the cinemas was much, much less.
And it's concentrating on independent and art house cinemas, and then maybe a small release schedule in the bigger chains as well. Yeah,
because this film definitely got a release in our major chains. Like Village and Hoyts.
I mean, it might be an independent film, but there's nothing really art house about it. I would have said this has pretty broad appeal, apart from one thing in particular, which I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah.
So it was shot primarily in Barcelona in Spain, with an estimated budget of about $3 million. So,
not surprising.
And grossed $19 million worldwide, which is pretty good.
Solid profit.
So what we're kind of learning over the last couple of weeks on Real Chat is keep your budgets low, keep your script tight, get good cast, and make the cheapest film you can for maximum profit.
Funnily enough, right after this, Ryan Reynolds went and made Green Lantern, which, they spent $200 million on, and strangely enough, it wasn't profitable.
Yeah, I know, and I think he spent the rest of the time and the money he made making that film trying to get all the copies and bury them. So... There is a coffin in Iraq somewhere filled with copies of the Green Lantern.
That's right. The director of this film is Rodrigo Cortés. He's a Spanish film director, producer, screenwriter, editor, and occasional actor, apparently.
Wow.
Cortés' fondness for filmmaking started at an early age. At 16, he already directed his first short film in Super 8. In 1998, he directed the short Yule that won over 20 awards, and in 2001, he released 15 Days, a fake documentary in the form of a large short film that earned over 57 awards at festivals, becoming the most awarded Spanish short film of all time. In 2007, he directed The Contestant, his first feature film that was released with critical applause and earned several awards.
Yeah, the danger of this film is if you go in with too many expectations, you're going to be disappointed. But if you go in and just, if you've got issues with Ryan Reynolds, forget it at the door. And if you don't think about it too much, especially if you're still listening and you haven't seen it yet, stop and go and watch it. But just empty your mind and go in with nothing, and you will enjoy the heck out of this film, because it's a really well-crafted film, really well-shot film, and the performances are amazing.
I went and saw this film originally because I had, done a little bit of reading about it, and this is why I went and saw it, right? It's because the entire 90-minute film, you're inside the coffin.
What Adam was trying to say, though, is that he'd done a bit of reading about this film, and he decided to go and see it because he spent a full 90 minutes, just him and Ryan Reynolds. So
we're not supposed to be using Real Chat to reveal information, of course.
Alone at last in Ryan Reynolds' box.
Yeah, nothing like Ryan Reynolds without the other guy, the girl in the pizza place. I tell you, that's the way you want him. That's the way you want him. Check out his pepperoni.
In a 2012 interview following the release of Red Lights, Cortez explained his perspective on independent filmmaking in an online interview. So I'll just quickly read this out. I don't believe in indie or studio as labels. As an audience member, what I want to hear is strong voices and clear personalities, and to feel challenged, not to feel reaffirmed on my own decisions or whatever. It's never about where you shoot. It's about what and about how. I mean that. This is not a pro-Hollywood or anti-Hollywood position. I learned to love cinema via the studio movies and, of course, Scorsese films, Spielberg films and Hitchcock. All of them did studio pictures with very strong voices. It's about finding this margin of expressing and exploring the things that touch your sensitive points.
Hey, he's basically saying, hey, if there's a Marvel film you want me to direct, I'm quite happy to do it. I'll take
That's what it sounds like.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah. This film was written by Chris Sparling. He's an American screenwriter, director and actor from Providence, Rhode Island. After writing, directing and acting in several low-budget independent films, Sparling found mainstream success when his feature-length screenplay Buried was purchased by producer Peter Safran. Sparling was awarded Best Original Screenplay by the 2010 National Board of Review for Buried, and the film was selected as one of the 10 best independent films of 2010. He also wrote Reincarnate for producer M. Night Shyamalan, the second film of a 3-part series known as The Night Chronicles.
Did that come out?
I don't think so.
No, because they did Devil, and I actually thought it was supposed to be 5 films that Shyamalan was going to produce and give to fledgling directors. Yeah, and I've been waiting to see what the other ones would be. I do think I heard that quite a few years ago, but as far as I know, the film hasn't appeared.
There's not much to go on with Chris Sparling. I guess we pretty much just base it all on Buried at the moment.
Yep.
I think. What do you guys think of the screenplay?
Like I say, I love it just because it goes through the possibilities one by one. It doesn't frustrate me so much. They're very good. This kind of film could easily fall into the trap of his character not thinking of the most obvious thing first, because that inconveniences the script. Something that comes to mind is, for instance, it's only 2/3 of the way through, he figures out he can change the language settings on the phone.
I thought that was a bit late.
Well, I mean, that's something that wouldn't necessarily...
First thing I would do. Oh, it's not this language. Okay, so, yep, that's the symbol for...
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought was a bit secondary. But, especially by 2010 when this film was done, people...
Also, you might...
Have you not had that practical trick done where someone takes your phone and changes the language on it?
Yeah,
and
but...
you're like, oh, right, okay, back...
Except were you buried in a box?
No, but he does other things, I think, that I wouldn't do first either. The phone's... He's got a phone in his hand and it's not in his language, so you go and change it.
Yeah, I guess.
You've got a phone in your hand. I can't use it. It's not in my language. I'll just change the settings.
I was aware of the fact that he could have done that earlier, but it didn't bother me in the context of the film.
It didn't bother me all that much, but when it happened, I'm like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, duh moment maybe, but when I was still watching the movie, I was still like, it'd be really hard to find out how to change the settings.
Give me your phone, Adam. And let's see what you...
Come on.
Yeah.
I'm going to lock you in the bathroom and see what you do
It
first.
wasn't an iPhone. It was
a BlackBerry.
It was a BlackBerry.
It was a BlackBerry, but
There's so many buttons, man.
Oh, man, what do I do?
It's got the whole alphabet on there, doesn't it?
I know.
Oh, that's crazy. I've got 26 buttons. How do I put it into English? Anyway.
I did also
I'm
wonder...
not saying it took me out of the film, but... What's that?
It would be difficult to find the language settings on that phone.
Yeah, but the point is he didn't think about it earlier on.
He didn't think about it.
Yeah.
And Brose, from his comfortable air-conditioned apartment, is saying that he would have thought of that earlier if he'd been buried in a box in Iraq.
If I turned on a phone, which was my only connection to the outside world, realising I was buried in a box in Iraq, then yes, I'd probably go, wow, this is my way out of here.
After you die for pizza?
I reckon I could work out how
I think we've just worked out what the next assignment should be. That's right, people. We're going to bury Brose in a box in Iraq with a phone, and we're going to see how well he does. And we're maybe going to give Ryan Reynolds a call so that he's the only person on the other end of the line. See how well you do.
Good,
I think Brose would find that quite soothing.
As long as we don't talk about Green Lantern.
Andrew, what did you think of the screenplay to Buried?
It's kind of hard to say because it's such an immersive film. You know, you watch it and you're just totally involved in the drama of it. And I couldn't really look outside of the actual drama at the time. So I mean, yeah, for the reasons we've discussed, I think it's very sound. You know, it's very plausible. Nothing kind of just jumped out as being kind of ridiculous or Hollywoodized. So yeah, I thought it was pretty believable for most of the.
That's a good sign. If you can't see the strings holding the script together, then you were completely immersed in it.
Yeah, definitely the whole time. Yeah, it's very
and that's a real credit to this film. It's 90 minutes, and you are right there to the end. And I think the ending is one of the real strong points of the movie as well.
We'll get to the ending, I'm sure.
All right. The cinematographer of the piece, Edouard Grau. So, what did you think of his work in the film, Andrew?
Yeah, it was very effective. I mean, gosh, it's pretty hard to kind of make something interesting out of that kind of scenario. And how do you change your lighting? You don't really have any lighting, so it was really interesting how it uses the light from the phone, his torch, the glow sticks, and it was very high contrast and a bit bleached out as well, which I really liked. It just added that kind of tense quality to the imagery. You know, some of it was quite abstract. You know, the way it was framed and lit. It was just this eyeball being illuminated in the darkness and just really extreme close-up. And, that great opening shot which starts on his eye and then pans all the way down along the coffin. It's a great opening shot, very Hitchcockian. So, yeah, and some shots which actually take you a perspective outside of the box were very clever.
Impossible shots, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Which they play on quite a lot too. They do the extended walls and do the long shot and stuff. I really like that stuff visually. It was a nice way to just mix things up a little bit.
Break it up, yeah.
That's what I was going to say, actually. Andrew recently mentioned Locke was one of your favourite films of last year, or your favourite film of last year. That's a film, it was also in my top 10, but one of the things that bugged me is I didn't like the cinematography in that film. So that's a similar scenario, guy in one place on the phone. With Locke, I found that they came up with, let's say, 25, 30 camera setups, and they just went through them in kind of a haphazard, random format, whereas I thought the way they did Buried so well is that the type of shots they used changed depending on the scene. So there was there was a rhythm,
his state of mind to a degree. As well.
It's dynamic. It changes. There's the fact, there's the different lighting sources that light different segments of the film, and it doesn't go so far as to make it too episodic, but it does break up what should all be the same from start to end. And that's what I really loved about this.
No, I agree.
They found so many different ways to shoot a guy in a box, which is just crazy.
The making of it, they didn't repeat a shot, I don't think. It's almost everything is different. Every cut is a different angle, which is extraordinary, considering how difficult that would be.
Yeah,
I think they pulled it off amazingly. Personally, let's talk a little bit about the cast of the film. This isn't going to take very long. Ryan Reynolds, he's the only person we see in the flesh. Apparently, he was the first and only choice to play Paul Conroy,
which is interesting, isn't it? Like the first go-to guy would be Ryan Reynolds. You reckon?
Yeah, that's. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
whenever a director or a producer or whatever says that, I don't know how much of that I take seriously.
Well, he has a bit of box office clout, so it kind of makes sense that you go for an actor that has made some popular films, even if they're not critically acclaimed, quite popular films, who's probably dying to break out and do something a bit more dramatic.
I think that's probably more likely what's happening is he's dying to get out of the comedy mould and do something a bit more dark and dramatic.
So really, his performance is the key to this film. And he is sensational in this film, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I was really surprised. I was probably a bit dubious about how he'd pull it off, but yeah, he has that everyman quality, which I think makes him likable to some people in comedy and drama, and he just carries the film, and he has to.
Movements through emotions is really believable as well. So he does go from trying to relax and stay calm, and then getting very angry and back and forth, and it doesn't get cartoony. That could get very overblown. There's nothing worse than someone who just starts ranting and yelling for no reason. So, yeah, I think he really maintains that very well with a lot of skill. And reflecting back on the way it was shot, I assume he was doing multiple takes of a lot of this stuff to get all the different angles for the camera in, which is obviously how it's done. So he maintains the... that's the trick. Between shot to shot, cut to cut, he's perfectly pitched the whole way
cameras
through.
in your face, like 5 cameras in such a tightly consumed space. I mean, that's a very great challenge for an actor.
Yeah.
I did one of the documentaries. He talks about how exhausting the filming process was because he wasn't inside an entire coffin, obviously. Yeah. So he had 2 or 3 walls, but it's still quite a confined space, and he's having to hyperventilate and yell and scream. And apparently, he'd go to bed after a day's shooting and he just couldn't sleep because his body was just so amped.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a really draining process. So it's quite incredible.
Do any of you guys want to make any mention of any of the... all the supporting cast are all voices, pretty much.
I just want to make a quick mention. Stephen Tobolowski, who is the voice... I think he works for the company he's employed by, who you may know as Ned from Groundhog Day.
Ned?
Yeah, Ned approaches
Ned
Bill
Ryerson?
Murray. Ned Ryerson.
That's that guy?
Yeah, he does Alan Davenport's
nice.
voice. Yeah, I saw that when I was looking it up on IMDb.
He's done quite a bit of work, that actor, yeah.
He's a
done
great
heaps of
actor.
work. A lot of TV, but he pops up in films all the time as well.
Yeah, I think all the voices are all... they all do a great job.
Yeah.
What was I've forgotten the name of the guy who... the British guy who sort of, tries to, keep him calm.
Dan Brenner?
Yeah. I think that choosing that voice to the British accent...
Yeah, that was good.
That was a great...
Very effective.
And when that voice comes in, it's a welcome change as well.
Yes.
We've spoken to a lot of Americans on the phone at that point, and the terrorist once or twice at that point, and then to hear the British voice, and it sounds authoritarian, it sounds like the guy's confident in control, and especially the way that character turns out during the film, Dan Brenner. Perfect casting. Yeah.
Definitely. So, what would you guys say that your favourite scene?
I don't know, it's a hard one to break up into scenes because it's all just in the coffin.
Favourite moment, perhaps?
Let's alter that. Favourite moment in this film?
I don't know. Any time when he's trying to reposition himself in the coffin looks painful, and
I was going to say
he only
that.
does it when he is absolutely desperate, and they pull it off so well. And he's trying to, because it's obviously not quite wide enough for him just to spin around, so he's awkwardly got to try and reposition himself to get the phone or to get whatever and bits and pieces. Yeah, it's really those moments are really good.
I was going to say one of the most effective scenes, it's probably not my favourite scene, is the first time he has to turn around in the coffin. And each time I watch that film, I just get so claustrophobic. And, I can't help
That gives you a really good sense of space, especially when they play with the idea of space of the coffin with the different shots they use. Those moments are like, oh, that's tight in there. Looks like a big coffin, but it's still a small space.
Yeah, so they're incredible moments. The other favourite moment would be just before the ending, actually. But when we talk about the ending, we'll talk about the ending, I'm sure.
Okay. Andrew, favourite moment?
I really enjoyed that, the horror of the snake reveal. That was...
You like the snake?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was...
Wow.
I thought it was
That's
creepy.
interesting.
That is, because a lot of people don't like that.
Me included.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of people thought that, I think, that was a step too far, and I can see where they're coming from. Because
It's just a bad day in the office, that is. That's
yeah, I mean, it doesn't appear... It's not an organic moment. He falls asleep at one point and then wakes up with a trouser snake.
Well, we can all relate to that.
Who hasn't been trying to get their snake into a box their whole lives? What I like about the snake moment is that it changes... I mean, obviously, is it Dan Brenner mentions that he's only a couple of feet underground because otherwise you wouldn't get phone reception.
Yep.
And having the snake in there kind of makes you think that maybe he's closer to the surface than you think. Because if the snake can get in, like how deep does snakes go?
Even closer than the few feet that Dan Brenner said.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was just consistent.
Not so much that it made me feel closer, but it was another element that...
It was like a Raiders of the Lost Ark moment where you see a snake come in through the wall and there's potential escape in that moment.
When the snake leaves through the hole, there seems to be some empty space there, and I don't know. To me, it just reinforced the idea that he's not that deep.
And also,
and it gave hope
That's right.
that he might be able to get himself out of there.
You see, if that frustrated me because I realised that I think there are actually two holes in the side of the coffin. I think it came out of one and then slipped away through the other, and then he stuffs the rag in that hole so it doesn't come back. But I'm immediately going, wait, there's a hole, you can fit your hand there, why can't you try and prise the boards towards you?
Yeah.
The idea being that, I don't know, this is the thing that bothered me, slipping sideways out of the coffin kind of makes a bit more sense because you haven't got the weight of all the dirt down on you.
Yeah.
So it did make me aware of that fact, and I'm like, oh, why didn't he try that? That bothered me, and there was another moment as well where one of the things that didn't occur to him to try really bugs me too. So,
Which you're going to mention later?
Well, it depends when you want to talk about the ending, Adam.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on the ending, so stick around. Real chat. The ending of Buried is going to rock your socks.
Another thing, like...
Musical interlude.
Yeah.
What do you do when you got a friggin' snake in the coffin with you? Like, how do you fix that? I mean, I was fascinated to see what he would do. I was thinking he was going to use the knife and hack away at it or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Stomp at it or whatever.
it was just, it was a good
he
moment.
decides to go for the most oxygen using, light a fire like inside the
This might speak more about my own pyro tendencies, but as soon as he had the lighter in his hand, I wanted a fire in that coffin. I don't know how they were going to justify it, but I wanted a fire.
And the alcohol and the flame, I was thinking, surely something's going to come out of that.
Good, I like it. I liked it. And it was a tense moment because it was a stupid thing to do, which is fine. He's stressed, he's under pressure. I don't know. I liked it. I got really. That was one of the moments where I started really worrying about.
It does help the first of two occasions when the pressure is really, really, really on. Like it's he's going to die at this moment or not, and the other time is the ending, of course. So yeah, it really does help.
We will get to.
So much foreshadowing.
Stick around.
But like the melting of the glow stick, I thought that was going to have something. You know, there was some very purposeful shots of that, and I was thinking, what does that mean? But nothing came out of that. Did you think there was something that was going to result from that?
Just building more tension, I think. I mean, the chemical.
And the flame, the flame just catches the glow stick and it kind of fuses to the box. And
wasn't the glow stick chemical flammable? Isn't that what they're worried about?
Been, yeah.
The fuel's running towards the fire. Anyway.
So it just added to the flame.
One of my favourite scenes in the film was actually one of the character building or human moments in the film, more so than just the physical being in the box. He calls his mum. She's obviously not with it.
This poor guy, nothing is going his way. I mean, not only is his wife, for some reason, completely uncontactable, he can't even talk to his mum because she's got Alzheimer's. It's amazing.
This might be the last time I ever talked to your mum, and he's obviously getting very emotional about it. And she goes like, "Oh, that's nice, dear."
Actually,
like
the nice character moment I like. Did you get the flowers I sent you a few months ago? So there's this suggestion that he's feeling guilty that he hasn't been visiting her, which was interesting there too.
It's like a great moment.
Those little moments, the human moments, where he just sort of it's there for character building and the like. But they're very effective.
They do a good job of explaining why he's in Iraq driving trucks.
Yeah.
And that he's obviously financially in a desperate situation, and that he's trying to do the best thing for his family, but at the same time doing the worst thing for his family. And they explain that really well, and that phone conversation adds to that as well. Yeah, it's nice, because why do you go to Iraq to drive trucks if you don't have to?
There's a link with Locke there, trying to do the best thing for his family and simultaneously doing the worst thing for his family.
Mm. Do you guys feel the claustrophobia in this movie? Matt,
they construct.
Do you feel it? Like, do you feel as uncomfortable as he
more
does?
so towards the end? And like I said, that moment where he tries to turn around, that's when I probably felt it for the first time. That's when I first felt like, wow, that's
a confined space.
It's a confined space. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew.
It didn't really draw its attention to itself. For some reason, it wasn't the main thing. I was just thinking, I was just racing. My mind was racing. What would I do? How would I get out of this situation? I mean, the claustrophobia, it comes with it, I guess, but it wasn't something that was truly the most effective thing for me.
All right, Stu, let's talk a little bit
This, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Let's talk about
Real
the
Chat
ending.
discusses the ending of Buried.
What have you got for us, Stu?
One thing I should mention is a lot of people who don't like this film are very upset by the ending of the film. First of all, if the film's doing its job, you want him to get out. That's understandable. We all want him to get out of the box. We desperately want him to get out. He doesn't. And I remember this being such a crushing blow when I saw it in the cinema, and it was awful, and I was so upset. But at the same time, I was like, any other ending would have felt like a cop-out. But I think that turns a lot of people off, because a lot of people say, well, what's the point of me watching this if it's going to get me excited, want him to succeed, and if he doesn't succeed, why would I want to watch this film? And people I recommended it to turned around and, swore at me because they hated being put through that experience. And for me, I was going to say my favourite moment of the film is also the most upsetting, and this was the third time I'd seen the film. Maybe I was in a more emotional space to begin with, but by the time he finally gets through to his wife, and he also thinks he's about to be saved, it's just so upsetting. And that he has to hang up to speak to the hostage taker guy again, and I was just so physically drained by that moment. It's just stunned, and the only thing that ruins that is the end title music, which I couldn't run out of the cinema fast enough. But
it's a bizarre choice.
Talk a little bit about that when we talk about the music. But
anyone else? The ending thoughts?
The ending I took two ways. Obviously, he doesn't get out within the 90 minutes of the film. There's still a chance he gets out. We don't know how deep down he is. There's a little bit of hope if you want it. I love that. No, he probably doesn't get out.
I don't think the film
always a silver lining, bro. It's always a silver lining.
But the film's not trying to give us hope.
That's one of the great unknowns of the film. It's one of the great unknowns of the film.
I mean,
and they reiterated it all the way through.
That's the other thing that frustrated me.
We don't know.
Yeah, but the other thing that frustrated me when I talk about him not trying everything I would try is that as soon as the top starts to splinter, go for it.
Well, that's the thing. A mad dash.
Before the sand settles and you're covered in sand, why would you not start to claw your way out then when there's movement?
To position himself on top of the sand.
Well, yeah.
Kind of floats up into the coffin somehow.
No, but it's too late by that point.
I know, but what I'm saying is if you can do that, which already takes some effort, why not try and get upright and try and We're talking about 2 or 3 feet, and it would be an incredible amount of weight. And I know it. I don't know if it's possible or not to break through 2 feet of sand from a lying position. But why not try and get upright and try and get,
yeah, that's the thing. And
try something rather than just going, oh, I'm getting squashed against the roof.
I mean, Uma Thurman can do it. Surely Ryan Reynolds can do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's that idea that when the sand's still moving, that you've got a chance. But once the entire weight's on, I don't know if that's realistic or not. But
I guess he also is lying there waiting for shovels to get him out. I guess I don't know. I'm with you there too.
They didn't tell him not to move though at that point.
There's
So
no real direction.
So yeah, I love the ending, but I hate it at the same time. It's exactly the ending the film needs.
I love
not the one we
endings.
wanted.
I don't mind who knows it. I love a good happy ending. I'm glad this film doesn't have a big, bright, happy ending necessarily. The film's not about the ending.
I like the way that towards the end they have that little, hallucination sequence.
Yeah.
That shows him, it's so close, it's like, and he actually imagines it happening.
Yeah.
That's almost like giving you that ending in his mind.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually happen, so...
I think that moment when Dan Brenner says over the phone that they found the other is Mark White.
Yep.
They found Mark White's body.
Yep.
That is like the most heartbreaking moment of the film. That's like I could have turned it off then and just started crying and been it's so the lie, but also the futility and the frustration and it's just incredible.
Okay, so on that point then. Did you guys all watch the film to the end of the end credits?
I didn't, but then I read that there's some scene afterwards, so then I put it back on and watched it.
Yeah.
So I actually am asking, what is the
does it mean?
Well,
how do you read?
So for those that don't know,
there's like a
there we go.
It's like a panning shot across the roof of the box, and it sort of zooms in on Mark White's name that he wrote earlier in he sort of like put a box around it.
Yeah,
Mark White. Yeah, it just zooms in on that, and then that's the end. And this is after the end credits.
Well, I like the idea that this Mark White, this faceless character, kind of haunts the film, but also that's the name he clings to. If you remember, I think the first time he gets mentioned, he's disbelieving that Dan Brenner even cares about him. And he says, name some of these people that you're supposedly saving that you care about. And that's the name he comes up with. And he writes the name down, and it's kind of like, this is him clinging to, this guy did save this guy. There is a chance for me. And of course...
Yeah. Well, and that's how he challenges Dan Brenner. He says, well, who have you saved? Prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it that you care about me. Who else have you saved? And then Mark White's the story.
Yeah.
So it's told to convince
So
him.
what do you guys think?
This Dan Brenner guy's a bit of an arsehole, let me say. He's a bit of an arsehole.
Do you think?
He's a professional arsehole.
Well, no. His job in many instances is... There's no point him saying, we're not going to find you.
I know. But his job's not to save Paul. His job is to think...
He's not doing...
trying his best.
He's not doing as much damage control as the other characters are.
True.
I mean, he says don't talk to the media. And his argument is that once you've talked to the media, the kidnappers have to go through with their threat now. They can't back out because they'll look like idiots, which is a good point. Aside from the fact, it makes America look bad, I guess. Or
So there's been 3 possibilities as to what actually happened to Mark White. Number 1, Brenner was telling the truth. Number 2, White was also kidnapped in Iraq in a similar situation just weeks before, and it was he who was saved. Or 3, Brenner was lying about saving White in an attempt to give Paul hope.
Yeah, it was the third one. That was
the
a guy he tried to save and failed, but he lied about. And that name came to mind because that was probably the last guy he dealt with. Exactly. It was 2 weeks ago, and that's why...
What's that false... Well, that not false ending, but that last bit, what does that mean? Is that saying that they've badged him? Do they get badged Mike White if they're a failed rescue attempt?
Oh, right. Is that like a military term for a failed rescue attempt? There
Maybe.
Is no Mark White.
It's just a generic name.
Wait, why would he say that? Why would the hostage taker say it's Mark White we found at the end if there was no such person as Mark White?
Don't know. I don't know.
It's just the reason the insurgent said, "I know where an American is buried." The reason that makes sense is because it only happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
If it were any older than that, it wouldn't make any sense that he'd point there. And you can assume something was lost in translation. He's like, "You're looking for an American that was buried. I know he's over here." So yeah, he's a real person to me.
It was just the coffin of Mark White. So that
no. Paul writes Mark White. When that name's told to him over the phone, he writes it on the coffin, and then he.
But isn't at the end and after the credits, isn't there a shot of Mark White's coffin?
No.
No, we don't know.
Sorry.
We actually don't know. We assume it's Paul's coffin.
It is, because it's the same writing.
So it's the same writing. I thought it was like actually like an actual official title or something.
No, sorry. It's the same...
This has gotten very weird.
I guess you had to have seen that shot to actually talk about it.
And it's about 12 seconds long, so we couldn't possibly stop the podcast and watch it now. That would it'd take up far too much time.
Live here.
It was a live recording, bro.
We could do an audio commentary for that 12 seconds.
We could, and it would be spectacular.
So, guys, how long could someone buried in a coffin remain alive until the oxygen ran out?
It's good that they talk about it, and Dan Brenner says you don't need to worry about that. Well, no, he does. He says don't get too upset, don't use up your oxygen, but at the same time he's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't get hung up on
And that's
it.
a good point, because worrying about that isn't going to work. As you said, setting off a fire probably wasn't the smartest idea. The other thing I would suggest is that maybe it's not airtight completely, since you've got a snake coming in and out, you've got gaps in between the wood, so the other difficult thing is we don't actually know how long the film covers, because one of the taglines said 90 minutes, without air, no way out, and it's a lie, because at one stage he falls asleep, so it isn't a real-time film.
When that happens, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we don't know how long he's passed out for. It could be seconds, or it could be minutes.
It could be an hour. I mean, we don't know.
If it is real time, which we don't think it is, exactly, he survives about 90 minutes in the coffin. He's also panicked, breathed heavily, coughed, puked, talked on the phone, and burned a cigarette lighter, which would use up significantly more oxygen than just controlled breathing. So we're to assume that he still had a little air left, even at the end, possibly from the snake hole, as you were talking about as well. Other considerations to take into account include Paul was buried in the sand, which is more porous than dirt. The depth at which Paul was buried, Brennan estimates 2 to 3 feet, or he wouldn't be able to hear, he wouldn't be able to get any cell phone reception. The size of the box was much larger than a normal coffin. However, the problem of survival is compounded by the fact that while the victim is breathing in oxygen, he or she is also breathing out carbon dioxide. Poisoning due to excess CO2 in the environment can result in loss of consciousness and convulsions before the oxygen ever runs out.
What about hallucinations? These being rescued right towards the end of the film.
Yeah. That's it.
One other tiny niggle. How come the phone doesn't say where he is? Like, even 10 years ago when I had a phone, before smartphones existed, they always told me where the nearest signal tower was. And
they should have easily been able to triangulate his location using 3 signal towers and got a fairly accurate...
Well, no, but they said it was a cloned phone, and that's enough hand wave for me to go, it somehow hides its location. But from his point of view, I thought the phone would still tell him where he is.
It could still tell him where he is.
But anyway... There you go.
Yeah. That battery life, geez, it's good, isn't it? It's just
I know,
taking
videos. I did find it strange the moment where he says take it off vibrate and then he puts it back on vibrate. Is that just to annoy the audience? Like he's like, I'm so sick of this
thing. I don't know.
The rational thing sort of goes out the window at some point.
It's just strange.
I just count his lucky stars. It wasn't an iPhone because he'd only have about 24 minutes of talk time. And
a short film.
It would have been a lot different. Those last 60 minutes would have been very slow without a phone.
However, Apple, if you do want to sponsor this podcast, we're open to the idea. Just putting it out there.
Exactly right. And there's something interesting as well, guys. The TV show Mythbusters tested the myth to see if someone could survive being buried alive for 2 hours, but discovered that a bigger problem was that the coffin began to bend under the weight of the earth used to cover it, and the experiment had to be aborted.
Right.
So they built a coffin similar to the one used in the movie? Like, was it specific to buried?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, right.
But that's an interesting,
interesting
again, probably implying he's probably not that deep.
See, personally, the size of the coffin I like to explain by thinking that they were building large coffins for fat Americans to go into, and then we're fortunate enough to have a skinny American in there. So
that's where he fits.
So much
Look at that Hollywood movie star to get in there. He was super trim and.
The film was shot in sequence. It was shot in a time period of over 17 days. One of the director's inspirations was the film Rope, directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
If I can say that this is a much better film than Rope. As much as, again,
that's from the Hitchcock fan.
I am the Hitchcock fan, although I have most recently criticised 2 of his films. Rope is an interesting technical exercise, but it never feels like more than a play. And often the technical exercise overwhelms the film in that instance.
It's all right, Stu. Rear Window is on the list of on our schedules.
Yeah.
I think they're all redeemed. Is that right? Because that is one of your more favourite Hitchcock films.
Wait, you mean the remake? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's fine.
Christopher Reeve.
The date of the events in the film is stated as the 23rd of October 2006, which is actually Ryan Reynolds' 30th birthday.
Hey.
That's just a little bit of trivia there. Ryan Reynolds states that he suffered from claustrophobia towards the end of filming, much like the character he is playing. This was mainly due to the fact that just for a moment he was actually buried in the shooting of the film's climatic moments. The production crew had a team of paramedics waiting on standby. He describes the last day of shooting as unlike anything I've experienced in my life, and I never ever want to experience that again. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and then, as I said, he went and had to do Green Lantern, which was 6 months of crazy weightlifting and physical training, which apparently was awful as well.
Yeah.
So 2 diametrically opposed films, just as tough as each other for different reasons.
Samantha Mathis, who plays Paul Conroy's wife, previously starred in a film where she was buried alive called 83 Hours Till Dawn in 1990.
Ooh, was that on purpose?
Yeah,
No idea.
Was that a bit of stunt casting that no one noticed?
no one else cares about.
Except someone on the crew who's a big fan of 83 Hours Till Dawn, maybe?
Yeah,
So,
I want to track that down now.
yeah.
Is it time for The Assignment?
For a film that you want to watch. I'm confused.
I'm just hoping every time I say The Assignment, the sound effect happens.
The Assignment.
It's a bit like You Can't Do This on Television. Yeah.
Do it to me.
The Assignment. Back to the future. The Assignment. Back to the assignment of the future.
Too much. We can't take it, Captain.
Wow, Adam's computer just exploded.
This is Brose's torture technique. He's using it on me right here.
The
It's as bad as
assignment.
being buried alive.
You're listening to The Vault, Real Chat, The Assignment. What else do we have sound effects for, damn it?
Real Chat's on meltdown. What's going on?
Sound effects.
Vintage Vault.
Vintage Vault, The Assignment, Back to the Future. The Assignment, Vintage, Back to the Future. I think we made our point.
I think we annoyed enough people with the Who Framed Roger Rabbit episode, bro.
That's
So,
true, including Andrew.
Sure did.
The phone number of the Chicago FBI field office mentioned in the movie is the number of the office in real life.
Whoa.
So, wonder how they got away with that.
That's really bizarre.
I know.
There's quite a few films that I won't be able to name right now because I can't remember that have accidentally put real phone numbers in their films. The fact that it didn't start with 555 was a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah. And that's why 555 is used, so that it's
Yeah.
definitely not a real phone number.
Let's tell people how they can go and see Buried today on DVD and Blu-ray. There was the 2011 DVD and Blu-ray release. The Blu-ray boasts solid video and stellar audio, but there are slim pickings when it actually comes to supplements. But there are a couple of things on there. And you know what? I don't think you need a huge amount of supplements for Buried.
The doco's good. I was going to say the film is quite grainy at times, and
Yeah.
I did wonder if that was a stylistic choice or if it's a consequence of the low budget or of the low lighting conditions. Anyone have any ideas?
That's a good point. I noticed it too watching it.
Yeah, there's a couple of
Blu-ray.
scenes that are really grainy, and I don't know if that's on purpose or not.
Not sure. The Unearthing Buried is the documentary you're talking about as
Yep.
well. So, yeah, it's just a little featurette on the making of the film that's composed of behind-the-scenes footage, movie clips, and brief interviews with the cast and the crew. Both the director and Ryan Reynolds come across as very friendly and generally humble people, which is quite impressive to see. We also get a few interesting peeks at how they use camera tricks inside the coffin, which was pretty cool. And there's also an interview with director Rodrigo Cortez as well, and the trailer. So, I mean, there's not much, but with a film like Buried, do you really need... I mean, you've got a making of doco. Do you really want a huge amount more?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Just wanted to see how they made the thing.
You don't want, the costumes of buried doco. Featurette. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the music, Andrew. Victor Reyes is his name. It's a very, very tense score. What was your impression of it?
Yeah, really effective. I'm not familiar with Victor. He's probably not familiar with me either. But did a really, really good job. I looked at his career. He's obviously done a lot of work with Spanish films over the years, and it's probably his first major work. And then he went on to do, I think, Red Lights as well for the director. And yeah, it's very, very effective. Lots of minimal string work and kind of jagged rhythms and. Just really adds the tension, and specifically I think the pinnacle of that moment is at the end when the sand's crashing through, and as you were explaining the phone call with the wife, things are just escalating to an incredibly tense point, and that's a lot to do with the music. I think it's very effective.
The music and the opening credits are very reminiscent of Psycho, are they not? That's clearly deliberate.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I love the opening credits. I love it. Was referencing Psycho obviously quite strongly, and the music was so strong in the opening credits, and that got me in straight away.
And
all of a sudden I was interested.
It's interesting because it's quite different to the film, of course, because there's colour and movement, and of course the film features very little in the way of colour and movement.
It shocked me a little bit. I was like, whoa, what's the tone of this film? It seems almost a little bit too upbeat for what we're about to watch. It was quite strange, but I think it was a bit of a nod, as you say, to Hitchcock.
There was no official release of the score, but I noticed that someone put it on YouTube in its entirety. So
Oh wow, cool.
I guess that's from
They'd taken it from the Blu-ray or something.
No, it sounded quite clean. It sounded like if it had actually been released. So I'm guessing that's one of those bootlegs that finds its way out there,
really.
and somebody just puts it out.
Was it released in? It wasn't released. The director's from Spain. Is it from Spain?
Yeah.
So it wasn't released in Spain.
No,
it hasn't been released at all. Okay,
No.
interesting.
But as I said, that's what I pointed to Andrew towards in preparation for the show today. A real shame.
Nice piece
I'd
of
like
work.
to track it down and have a proper listen to it.
It's also got Brose's favourite musical instrument, the Armenian duduk. I believe is featured prominently.
I love an Armenian duduk. Is that what I think it is?
What do you think it is?
It's an instrument. From Armenia.
So yeah, it's a shame it doesn't exist, but people who want to check it out, just go onto YouTube and type in Buried Score and you'll find a playlist of every...
Knock your socks off.
Yeah, knock your socks off. It's got every single track as well, I think. Anything that was composed, it's all there, so it's complete.
Including the end credits song, which...
Just about to talk about that. There's one song in this film, In the Lap of the Mountain. What do you guys think?
That was incredibly jarring. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, and it's even more interesting to know that it was written by the director.
Yeah.
I see.
And then performed by an actual band. Like, it's not his band or anything.
Yeah.
And just it's a really...
And also, it feels like the kind of film where it should have just been silence and credits.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
I mean, just
Really
to let it hit home.
Or just the screams of Ryan Reynolds. He chokes on sand and slowly suffocates, and the cracking of the wood as he gets engulfed. Okay, maybe not that so much. That'll be a bit intense.
Keep your fantasies to yourself.
Yeah, you get the feeling the director really liked Her Brother Were Out There and then decided he wanted to finish the film with a bit of
it's a
voice.
It's a little bit black, isn't it? It's just inappropriate completely.
You're trying to relieve the tension with the song in the end credits. It doesn't feel...
It wasn't that, though. It's done in a kind of sick joke kind of way,
I think it's
think.
on a dark joke, yeah.
Yeah, if they'd at least faded it in or something. We just didn't want it straight after the ending. It's such a shocking ending. And then it just... What? Oh, okay. Yeah, that bugs me.
Enemy with Gyllenhaal, that film has a similar kind of choice of music in the end credits as well.
There's a couple of films I've seen in my life where I've loved the film and then just had to run out of the cinema as fast as I can because the end credits song is ruining it for me.
Yeah.
I know why he chose that song. He was trying to win the Oscar for Best Song in a Feature. That's exactly what it was. Any old piece of crap wins that one. So.
Yeah, he should have had Ryan Reynolds sing along at one point, and then they could have been up for Best Musical. There's never any
no competition there.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's spot on. That's why he did it.
The only thing that I can imagine could have been cut out, perhaps at one point, the snake could have been. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because it's this outside element that doesn't have any bearing on the rest of the
I
film.
find it quite jarring.
Yeah, I know. I don't really have a problem with it, but it does feel strange.
Yeah, it's probably my least favourite scene in the movie.
Yeah, anyway.
So, but there aren't any deleted scenes or anything from the movie, so they pretty much used everything as far as we know.
And again, it comes back to that idea. It's a small budget film. It's a 17-day production schedule. The script would have been pretty tight. Because it's all set in the coffin, any ideas that don't work, you can throw out at the script stage. You need to shoot them.
Do we have any nice collectibles from
The closest I can get is that the other day I saw a kid playing with a Green Lantern figure in a sandpit, which I found an eerie coincidence.
He was burying it in the sandpit.
He was, yeah.
Because for those who don't know, the Green Lantern ring's weakness is yellow, and a lot of sand is yellow.
Wow.
So that kind of makes sense.
So you're telling me there's no
I know you're surprised.
Little hot toys like Ryan Reynolds in a box, like with little light up glow sticks and little props and stuff like that.
Correct.
Damn.
There isn't. Do you really want that? Do you? We can customize this one for you.
Kind of a cutaway. It's a bit like an ant farm with the box down the bottom, and you press a button.
Oh, I like the idea of that.
You press a button, the box opens, and the sand pours in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can drown Ryan Reynolds in sand over and over again.
That'd be perfect.
For all those kids that love Buried. That's right.
If you're listening, Ryan, hi.
Love your work, mate. Love your work.
There was no Academy Award nominations or Golden Globe awards or nominations.
That's bullshit.
Buried?
I'm sorry. Come on. Best actor, easily. Why would you not? That's such a difficult task ahead of him, and he
carries the whole
knocked
film.
it out of the park.
It's really good. It's amazing.
That's incredible.
But do independent films get nominated in those?
Oh, I know it's all political, and they need money to go on the campaign trail.
It costs millions of dollars to secure a nomination, and then millions more to get a trophy. So, yeah, this may not have had the budget for it, but it's still these days with 8 films being nominated. This is exactly the kind of fare that would get that 7th or 8th nomination.
But the film did win Best European Feature Film of the Year award at I love the name of this festival, Strasbourg European Fantastic Film Festival.
Wow.
What was that? In September 2010. Buried received mostly positive reviews from critics, with Ryan Reynolds being praised for his performance. The consensus saying, wringing a seemingly impossible amount of gripping drama out of its claustrophobic premise, Buried is a nerve-wracking showcase for Ryan Reynolds' talent. I very much agree with that statement.
My spider senses are tingling. Is Ebert about to appear? I can tell he's on his way, isn't he? He is.
How did you know?
And what did Ebert think about this?
He awarded the film 3.5 out of 4 and wrote that Rodrigo Cortés, the Spanish filmmaker behind this diabolical Hitchcock-influenced narrative stunt, makes merry mischief with camera angles and lighting.
Well, at least that's fine.
Thank God he's dead, really. Jesus. I'm just saying what we're all thinking.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Wow, that's... Oh, man.
I was joking, Roger. I'm sorry. From beyond the grave.
That explains all the hate mail you've been sending Lennon Moulton as well. What is your problem?
What did he give films like Seven, Thin Red Line, Blade Runner? I
don't know. I'm sure Roger's got taste. He's a lovely guy, apparently.
All right, Scott.
Jeez.
Scott Mantz of Access Hollywood called it a brilliantly twisted suspense thriller that would have made Alfred Hitchcock proud. There's a lot of Alfred Hitchcock being mentioned here.
He would have loved this film. I think that's pretty safe to say. He would have thought that's amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if this occurred to him at one stage to make a film like this and they just couldn't get it to work.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had the technology necessarily.
Yeah. And Peter Travers of Rolling Stone awarded the film 2 out of 4 stars, commenting, 90 minutes of being buried alive with Ryan Reynolds. Didn't we all suffer that in The Proposal?
That wasn't a really easy joke to make, was it? Yeah, come on.
Yeah, that's
really
harsh.
Yeah, I think that's harsh.
Presumably he actually said, provided some useful reasons as to why it was a bad film, rather than just going for the joke. But there you go.
Hating on Ryan Reynolds.
The Rotten Tomatoes website certifies Buried fresh with a score of 87%, 131 positive and 20 negative, which is very good. And the IMDb website, 7 out of 10. So that's very good as well.
That is good. That's solid.
That's very good. So let's just do our traditional 5-star review system here. And as usual, I'm going to start over here with Andrew. Andrew, review?
As I said before, it's not one of those films that I'm drawn to, but yeah, very enjoyable. Probably a one-off film, I reckon, for myself. I don't think I'll return to it, but yeah, almost a horror film, really. It's kind of got that. It's just the whole concept is like it plays like a horror film and inevitably ends like one. And you probably question whether if it was more of an Americanized film, whether that ending would have happened. But I'm glad it did because it made it a lot more powerful as a result and a lot more memorable. So, yeah, I thought it was just gripping film and yeah, very nice kind of homage to Hitchcock. And I'd give it 3.5.
Okay. Brose.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3.5 stars as well on this one. It's a really solid film. The 90-minute length is perfect. Any longer, it would have been probably would have got to me too much because it's so intense. And 90 minutes is good. Ryan Reynolds is spectacular in it. It's gripping. Again, it's not the kind of film I'd run out and go and see because I didn't run out and go and see it. But it's worth a look. If you like Ryan Reynolds, it's worth a look. And if you don't think much of him, it's worth a look because he really nails the performance in this and really brings a whole new level to his acting. Yeah, it's a great film. 3.5 films. Check it out. I recommend it. Go and have a look at it. If you haven't seen it yet, 3.5 stars. 3.5 films.
It's worth 3.5 films?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
3.5 films, a girl in a pizza place.
So that's like what? 8.5 stars.
That's
3 normal films worth of stars.
Yeah, I give it 3.5 snakes up the trouser leg.
Don't we all?
Stu.
Yeah, 5 stars. As a confined space thriller, it's incredible. And it's such an emotional experience. As I said, it was the 3rd time I watched it, and it was still incredibly upsetting, and I still desperately wanted him to get out of the box, even though I knew how it was going to end. So yeah, it's just so incredible and such a primal fear that anyone can relate to this horrible, horrible predicament.
So 5 stars from you, Stu.
Absolutely.
And everybody recommends it as well? I think I forgot to mention at the end there, but that's okay.
The other thing we haven't mentioned much about this film yet is that there is a strong element of social commentary in this, and there is a bit of, I wouldn't say anti-war, but it reflects on war in a very interesting way, in a different way. So yeah, it's worth watching for that reason as well. But,
Yeah, definitely.
Adam.
I'm going to give it 3.5. And
What? This is crazy. Considering how much you raved about it in the past, I'm so surprised.
yeah, to be honest, I actually dropped it a little bit after the second viewing.
Ah.
This is why I'm going to say, just quickly, I'm just going to jump ahead. I recommend this film, but only watch it once.
Okay.
This film, for me, actually diminished a little bit on the second viewing. That you obviously didn't feel, Stu.
No.
But,
What was the gap between viewings? You saw it when it came out
5
and you saw it
years.
recently? Yeah,
5 years, okay.
That's worth mentioning.
Because I remember you speaking to me at the time when you first saw it, and you were like, "This has renewed my love of films. This is why movies exist."
Yeah.
Glowing praise. Yeah.
yeah, you remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is a really strong 3.5. It's just that, like, this time around, I didn't get as much out of it as I did the first time. So again, if people want to watch this, I definitely recommend this film. But it's a once-off for me. And
So you didn't feel the tension the second time. You weren't as emotionally involved. Is that what was missing?
knowing what was going to happen probably took a little bit away from me on repeat viewings. Like that
Wow.
happens sometimes with movies. Some of them you can watch them over and over again. Like, you get exactly the same
Emotional
feeling.
response.
I suppose.
Emotional response every time.
Yeah.
But really, Stu, the 3.5, it's still a very good score. A 3.5 star movie is still a very good film, right? So
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is
I think
amazing.
Stu's confused because he remembers your reaction to it initially and feels somewhat betrayed by your original reaction now. So I don't think it's the rating you're giving it. That's
And
all
that's 2
fine and
weeks of Real
justified.
Chat in a row now that
But,
he's been disappointed with my score.
I've just got used to it, you know.
I thought they might have eased off a little bit on that. But,
I can see exactly what you're saying, and I really enjoyed this film, but I'm more inclined now to go and watch Locke and other films that use a similar device.
yeah, like you told me to see Phone Booth.
I loved Phone Booth when I saw it, and again,
Yeah.
I'm not in a big hurry to see that again.
Can I just challenge you there and say I preferred the straight-to-video Wesley Snipes film Liberty Stands Still.
Over Phone Booth?
Yep, better than Phone Booth.
Okay.
I'm putting it out there.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to laugh at me.
That's fair enough. I've got no problem with that. But I enjoyed Phone Booth, and like I said, this is a writing and directorial exercise and an acting exercise. It's an exercise, and it's executed very well.
But yeah, it's emotionally involving. It's not like what was the film Time Code, which had the
Yeah.
4 screens happening simultaneously and was filmed in real time. That felt like more
I
of
like
an
these types
exercise.
of exercises when they're done well, and this one is done well. Like I like that I can be taken out of my intellectual kind of thoughts but I wasn't entirely in this film. But you know, I could see the devices and how they were setting it up and had structured it. But I still enjoyed the hell out of the film. And
If it were just an exercise, it would end up being Russian Ark.
Exactly.
And we all know how friggin' boring that film was.
I think I watched the first 6 hours of it and fell asleep. And you should never watch Russian Ark back to back with Battleship Potemkin. By the way, that's just asking for trouble.
very few thrillers are able to think outside the box.
Oh, there he goes.
Buried actually does manage to do so entirely from within one. All right, so
Ooh.
I think look, Stu.
It's too late, Adam. You won't get that quote on the cover. They've already released the DVD, man. You were just desperate to get your name there. Yeah.
But yeah, I think this film is masterfully directed. It's perfectly paced, and Ryan Reynolds delivers probably the best performance that I've seen. So yeah, 3.5 stars, and very, very recommended from me for a once-off viewing. So yeah, so that's that pretty much wraps up Buried. So thanks very much, guys, for coming along and chatting about Buried with us today.
Not a problem. It was a fun film to watch. I enjoyed it, and
Fun, emotionally draining.
I'm tired now.
It's hard work.
And I think we were quite light about the film in this episode of the podcast, partly in reaction to how intense that film is.
It's very intense.
But yeah, it's a great film. Check it out. And good to see you guys. Always good to catch up.
Thanks again.
No worries.
And we'll see you guys next week. See ya.
later.
See ya.
Stay in touch with us by visiting realchat.com.au. Check us out on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at RealChatPodcast, Instagram real_chat_podcast. And if you haven't already, catch up with past episodes and subscribe to new episodes on iTunes.